It's time for Tartarian Tales number 37, featuring some clips from this book, ancient fragments of the Phoenician, Chaldean, Egyptian, Tyrian, Carthaginian, Indian, Persian, and other writers. And it has some just incredible clips that are just very vivid and beautiful and ancient beyond belief. And just talking to some of you all during one of the premieres before, I started thinking about the origins of time and the creators and the builders. And, was it thousands of years, 1,000 years, 20,000, a million, a billion, or infinite? Has this been going forever? How can you have a beginning to what we have going on? Like, how can there be a beginning or an end? I'm not really sure. And I'm not really sure what my own impressions are, but I know they are vast and they are ever growing. And so I like to include what the ancients think. And so let's get cracking here. These are some cool fragments, but definitely check out the book and enjoy the art. First, this is from Aristophanes. First was chaos and night, and black Erebus, and vast Tartarus. And there was neither earth, nor air, nor heaven, but in the boundless bosoms of Erebus. Night, with her black wings, first produced an aerial egg, from which, at the completed time, sprang forth the lovely Eros, glittering with golden wings upon his back, like the swift whirlwinds, but embracing the dark-winged chaos in the vast Tartarus. He begot our race, the birds, and first brought us to light. The race of the immortals was not, till Eros mingled all things together, but when the elements were mixed one with another, heaven was produced, and ocean, and earth, and the imperishable race of all the blessed gods. Aristophanes. Their use of Tartarus in some of these clips is absolutely unbelievable. It's almost as if it's like a different element. It's an ether. It's the life force of everything. You'll get a better grasp as it comes on, but take note of that, the way they use Tartarus. And if the Tartarians were of this, it could explain a lot of the tops of buildings and much more. From Orpheus, chaos in a vast yawning chasm on every side. The next, Maya, supreme of gods, immortal night, tell me this, how shall I constitute the magnanimous first principles of the immortals? Surround all things with ineffable ether and place them in the mid-heaven. Proc. Tim 63. You can check these all out in this book, but wow, just imagine what they were thinking and if they knew what all of this meant. And everything made sense at the time, and we've lost these elements. This is very cool. From the different Orphic fragments, we find that the Orphic trinity consisted of Metis, Phanes or Eros, Erekapeus. And this is interesting because it kind of gets a glimpse of what Tartarus is, which are interpreted will or counsel, light or love, life or life-giver. From Acusilaus, Metis, Eros, ether. From Hesiod, according to Damascius, earth, Eros, Tartarus. And Tartarus is the same, synonymous with ether, life or life-giver. Erekapeos, whatever that is, spirit or air, cloudy darkness, the egg, ether, again, soul or spirit, spirit of the world. And that's kind of what I would kind of get it at. But take a look at that whole page. Really beautiful. And if Tartarians are named after this element of whatever our existence is, then they may have been able to master it. They may have been able to harness it. They may have been the geniuses. And who knows where they came from, how long. We can never know. But I hope someday maybe the information exists somewhere and it will be found or dug up. Here we go. Typhon, Echidna, and Python, being the progeny of Tartarus and earth, which is conjoined with heaven, form as it were a certain Chaldaic triad, which is the inspector of the whole disordered fabrication. The Trinity, the Triad, all these things combining and forming just something unreal, unfathomable. Chaos was generated first, and then the wide-bosomed earth, the ever-stable seat of all, the immortals that inhabit the snowy peaks of Olympus, in the dark aerial Tartarus, in the depths of the permeable earth, and Eros, the fairest of the immortal gods, that relaxes the strength of all, both gods and men, and subjugates the mind in the sage, will in their breasts. From chaos were generated Erebus in black night, and from night again were generated Ether in day, whom she brought forth, having conceived from the embrace of Erebus. And earth first produced the starry heaven, equal to herself, that it might enclose all things around herself. I love how in a lot of these ancient writings, it seems like the beings, the people that are talking, are looking at our part of the world as something that's so small, and they know what is bigger, what is around it, what encloses it, what makes it up, what all these different things in the ether, what all these things consist of, and how they make this whole thing exist. It seems like they know it. And somehow we let Einstein completely eradicate physics and the science of ether. It's insane. We need to get back on the path quick and discover what the ancients knew and remember it, because we do know it. It's known somewhere in all of us. And here we go. This one's pretty interesting as well. I'm going to start with, but Hesiod, when he affirms that chaos was the first produced, appears to me to regard chaos as the incomprehensible and perfectly united nature of the intelligible. From thence he deduces earth as the first principle of all the generation of the gods, unless perhaps he may regard chaos as the second subsistence of the two principles, in which case earth and Tartarus, and Eros, love, compose the threefold intelligible, Eros being put for the third subsistence, considered according to its convertive nature. Orpheus also in his Rhapsodies has adopted a very similar disposition, for he places the earth for the first, being the first that was conglomerated into a compact and essential substance, while he places Tartarus as the middle, as having already in a manner a tendency towards disunion. But Acusilaus appears to me to regard chaos as the first principle and altogether unknown, and after this one to place the duad, Erebus as the male and night as the female, the latter being substituted for infinity, and the former for bound. And from a connection between these were generated ether and Eros, love, and metis, counsel, these three being the intelligible hypostasis, of which he places ether as the summit, Eros as the middle in compliance with the natural intervention of love, and metis as the third, inasmuch as it is already highly venerable intellect. And from these, according to the relation of Eudemus, he deduces the vast multitude of the other gods. Epimenides affirms that the two first principles are air and night, whence it is evident that he reverences in silence the one principle which is prior to the two, from which I conceive he holds that Tartarus is generated, regarding it as a nature in a manner compounded of the two. For some, indeed, regard the principle which is derived from these two as a kind of intelligible intermediate subsistence or mediety, properly so called, inasmuch as it extends itself to both extremities, the summit and the boundary, for by their connection with one another an egg is generated, which is properly the very intelligible animal, from which again proceeds another progeny. I wish people still talked like this and thought like this at a common and mainstream level, because this stuff is amazing, and what the true shape of our universe and world is just so far beyond us. But it doesn't seem like it was so far beyond these ancient people, and that's nuts. In their artwork, their architecture, the miracles they were able to achieve in art and all these other things are just almost further proof of it all. Some Orphic fragments. First, I have sung the vast necessity of ancient chaos, and Cronus, who in the boundless tracks brought forth the ether, in the splendid and glorious Eros of a twofold nature, the illustrious father of night, existing from eternity, whom men call Phanes, for he first appeared. I have sung the birth of powerful Brimo, Hecate, in the unhallowed deeds of the earth-born giants, who showered down from heaven, their blood the lamentable seed of generation, from whence sprung the race of mortals who inhabit the boundless earth forever. Now that is just a miracle of writing. If it is true, it means just our universe is just totally different. And it's just totally structured. And that's one of the big things about why they think the ball earth is so important in space, and we're floating around and all this stuff and all these numbers that nobody normal can understand. Because what really is the case here, what our real structure is so much more magnificent and powerful and empowering, and it feels just so much more right. It unites us. To go down the wrong path of thinking something so immature and pathetic about something so grand and beautiful and perfect that we know is inherent in us is just not healthy for us. So we have to think better. Of the Atlantic island from Marcellus, that such and so great an island formerly existed is recorded by some of the historians who have treated of the concerns of the outward sea. For they say that in their times there were 7 islands situated in that sea which were sacred to Persephone, and 3 others of an immense magnitude, one of which was consecrated to Pluto, another to Ammon, and that which was situated between them to Poseidon. The size of this last was no less than 1,000 stadia. The inhabitants of this island preserved a tradition handed down from their ancestors concerning the existence of the Atlantic island of a prodigious magnitude, which had really existed in those seas, in which, during a long period of time, governed all the islands in the Atlantic Ocean. Such is the relation of Marcellus in his Ethiopian history. So that's pretty interesting, of the islands that they, I'm sure, erased from our current maps. I always envision that there are other maps somewhere that exist and are kind of similar to the Mercator map that shows the North Pole-ish, and they just show all around in all the different sides that really, they've just taken them all out of our realm and don't let anyone see them and don't let anyone know about them, don't let anyone explore them, but they're there, guaranteed. Of the Tower and Titanian War from the Sibylline Oracles. But when the judgments of the Almighty God were ripe for execution, when the tower rose to the skies upon Assyria's plain, and all mankind one language only knew, a dread commission from on high was given to the fell whirlwinds, which with dire alarms beat on the tower, and to its lowest base shook it convulsed. And now all intercourse, by some occult and overruling power, ceased among men. By utterance they strove, perplexed and anxious to disclose their mind, but their lip failed them, and in lieu of words produced a painful babbling sound. The place was thence called Babel, by the apostate crew named from the event. Then severed far away they sped uncertain into realms unknown. Thus kingdoms rose, and the glad world was filled. Also of the Tower of Babel from Alexander Polyhistor. The Sibyl says that when all men formerly spoke the same language, some among them undertook to erect a large and lofty tower, that they might climb up into heaven. But God, sending forth a whirlwind, confounded their design, and gave to each tribe a particular language of its own, which is the reason that the name of that city is Babylon. After the deluge lived Titan and Prometheus, when Titan undertook a war against Cronus. Intense stuff. Whatever happened there, and wherever it is, it's probably not even in our part of the realm. It could be the center, it could be anything. It could be one of the beams, one of the structures, one of the pillars. Maybe that's why pillars are so popular in architecture, is because they mimic some part of the macrocosm. Who knows? Of the Indian astronomy from the Pascal Chronicle. About the time of the construction of the tower, a certain Indian of the race of Arphaxad made his appearance, a wise man and an astronomer, whose name was Andubarius, and it was he that first instructed the Indians in the science of astronomy. So imagine if just even into the first known historical cultures and civilizations, if races were coming into their existence that they had no clue where they came from, of their origins. this could go on forever. Because if you think about it, why would the true creator ever leave his sign? He would probably not have an ego like people now. He wouldn't need to, it wouldn't need to have recognition or receive any recognition. So why even have it? Just keep your races, delude them at several points, and just have them kind of just keep going in circles. And I guess that doesn't give us much hope for finding the truth, but I think we can find a lot out that is so fascinating, so amazing, and just puts a whole new perspective on really life in this world, especially when we see all these buildings in our local areas that point to a time that was magnificent right next to us, right in our same living space. And there's so much mystery we unfold because we've been lied to for so long. Enough of the lies. Let's get to the truth. Keep the comments coming. Bless you all.